What's up, you amazing people? I hope you're having a fantastic day. You are, of course, watching and listening to the Daily Dirty 30, also known as the DDT, here on The Kevin Lee Show. And I am your host, Kevin Lee. Now, for those of you who do not know what the DDT is all about, let me take a moment to explain. You see, it's a show that airs live at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and it's where I get to spend 30 minutes telling you, the viewer, all about the things that bother me today. What do I get out of it? It's easy. It's therapeutic. Why should you tune in? That's even easier. It's entertaining. Sound like a fair trade? Good. Let's get to it. What's up, my beautiful friends? I hope everybody's having a happy Wednesday. Once again, I have another microphone set up. So I was using my traditional old regular microphone over here. I've been trying to use a lapel. That's not really working, but I still want something kind of further away from me. So I'm trying this microphone. Hopefully it sounds good. If it does, let me know. And if it sounds like crap, please let me know as well. Anyways, it is Wednesday, and of course you are watching the Daily Dirty 30 here on The Kevin Lee Show. This is a show that airs every Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, and runs for somewhere approximately around, about a half an hour. And of course, I am your loyal host, Kevin. So today we are going to be talking about a number of things, kind of all over the place, but not really, not too bad, not terrible. First place we're going to start with, actually, let's just get right into it, because lately it seems like we keep running out of time, so let's get right to it. So today, first story we're going to talk about is this guy right here, Mr. Alan Dershowitz. If you probably know who he is. He's a lawyer. He's famous. Some of you may or may not know that during President Donald Trump's impeachment, he was actually one of the lawyers for Donald Trump. So why are we talking about him? Well, it's a good question. Lawyer Alan Dershowitz, my goodness, I'm just going to call him Alan, Big Al, sues CNN for $300 million for portraying him as an intellectual who has lost his mind after he defended Trump during impeachment trial. That's right, good old Mr. Alan Dershowitz decided to sue CNN for $300 million for essentially, making him look bad, right? And again, he's a lawyer. This is what lawyers do. Lawyers are always going to want to sue people. So they should not be surprised that this is indeed happening. Let me pull this up so we can all read. It says, Dershowitz raised eyebrows during the Senate trial by saying that if a president does something which he believes will help him get elected in the public interest, that cannot be the kind of quid pro quo that results in impeachment. Well, that's his opinion. But of course, he does have a very educated opinion, considering he is a well-known constitutional lawyer and has been for, probably as long as I've been alive, as well as, if I'm not mistaken, he's a teacher, or was a teacher at least, at Harvard. Might have been Yale, but I believe it was Harvard. It says the attorney had earlier said that a quid pro quo would be unlawful if the quo pro were somehow illegal, but is now accusing CNN of airing misleading footage in a barrage of defamatory programming that led to Dershowitz being openly mocked. But let's face it, this is CNN we're talking about. This is what CNN does. They love mocking people. They love attacking people. They love giving half-truths. And they're not the only ones. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying CNN is the only culprit out there. MSNBC is famous for, even lots of the major ABC, NBC, CBS's, and even Fox News occasionally. I think they were worse at it before. And there are people who are worse at it, like Tucker Carlson, and Sean Hannity, and Laura Ingraham. But again, those shows are not news shows. Those are opinion shows. So you kind of half expect it, right? But when you have a show that is supposed to be news, like a Don Lemon, like an Cooper, whatever his name is. God, I can't think of his name. I'm totally blanking. But you get the point. The point is that Alan Dershowitz was very upset. So here is actually just a snippet of a video we're going to listen to right quick of him actually during the trial. I don't know if you ever had a chance to watch any of it, but this is kind of the type of thing that CNN was attacking him for. And this is exactly the type of thing that Alan Dershowitz is suing CNN for $300 million. Enjoy.
Question is addressed to counsel for the president. As a matter of law, does it matter if there was a quid pro quo? Is it true that quid pro quos are often used in foreign policy?
What if a Democratic president were to be elected and Congress were to authorize much money to either Israel or the Palestinians, and the Democratic president were to say to Israel, no, I'm going to withhold this money unless you stop all settlement growth, or to the Palestinians, I will withhold the money Congress authorized to you unless you stop paying terrorists. And the president said, quid pro quo. If you don't do it, you don't get the money. If you do it, you get the money. There's no one in this chamber that would regard that as in any way unlawful. The only thing that would make a quid pro quo unlawful is if the quo were in some way illegal.
So there you have it. So that's clear as mud. But again, we are talking about the law, we are talking about lawyers, and we are talking about all that kind of fun stuff. So when you kind of get into that area, you expect to be some muddy waters, right? Oh, there we go. Jumped ahead of myself there. So this next story is actually going to be about the Big Ten. The Big Ten football is back. And you know what? Nobody cares. Well, I mean, the players care, and I'm sure the coaches care, and I'm sure the people at those schools care. But I don't think anyone else really cares. And from what I understand, they're going to be playing a shortened season. So originally, which didn't really make much of any sense, they were going to play in the spring. But now they're going to play now, starting sometime in October. So sometime next month, I think mid to late October, and they're going to be playing 8 games strictly. So it's not a hugely shortened season, but it is slightly shortened. And this gentleman you're looking at right here, his name is, I'll take this off screen so you can read it. His name is Kevin Warren, and he is the commissioner of Big Ten football. So, of course, Donald Trump has to be involved when we talk about Big Ten football because, you know, Donald Trump. Great news. Big Ten football is back. All teams to participate. Thank you to the players, coaches, parents, and all school representatives. Have a fantastic season. It is my great honor to to have helped. So yes, Donald Trump is taking at least partial credit for bringing the Big Ten back. But hey, he's running for office. Why wouldn't he? Even if he had nothing to do with it, you want to try to find any area you can for credits because you want people to hear about it. You want people to know about it. You want people to know who you are and the things that you have done, right? So this is nothing new, but rather amusing as far as I'm concerned. Now, it goes on to say here, Big Ten football is back. Trump celebrates after successfully urging conference not to postpone until spring as it prepares to start 8-game season in late October, just like I was mentioning. So again, how much President Trump had to do with it, it's hard to tell. It says less than 5 weeks after pushing football and other fall sports to spring due to the pandemic, the Big Ten has changed course at the urging of President Donald Trump. So apparently whoever wrote this article really believes that Donald Trump had a lot to do, and maybe he did, right? From what I understand, looking into it the way I did notice that there was a number actually, essentially all teams were on board up front at this point, except I guess Michigan was still kind of on the fence. And for whatever reason, in whatever way, I do not know, maybe, President Trump gave it a little push. Maybe he gave a little incentive to Michigan. I don't know what happened. But apparently he was able to get them to, or at least influence them in some way to agree to play now as opposed to the spring. Because frankly, honestly, what's the difference between now and spring, right? We're learning more and more and more because, okay, quick history. If you don't know already, we're in a pandemic. But this virus that we're dealing with is a novel virus, which means we don't know a whole heck of a lot about it. Actually, almost nothing other than the fact that it was a virus. We've learned more and more and more as the months have gone on since January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, now September. And we've actually coming to realize, and a lot of people are now, at least internationally, overseas, willing to admit more and more that maybe this thing is bad, but it's only bad for certain groups of people. Other certain people are to be far better. In fact, I was just reading an article, and I wish I would have clipped it. See if I can find it. If I can, I will definitely tweet it out after the show. That's that Kevin Lee show, just so you know. There was an article written, 2 articles rather. One article had to do with the fact that for big name colleges like the Big Ten and, just the big name universities, there had been 11,000 students, college students, who had all tested positive for COVID-19. It was since going back to school in just like a month, right? That sounds terrible. Not a single student died. In fact, not a single one of those students was hospitalized. Then I came across another article that making reference to that first one, and then said that the actual total nationwide up until this point had been 35,000 students for all colleges had tested positive indeed for COVID-19. And again, 0 deaths, 5 hospitalizations, and 4 of those were completely voluntary, only because the people had pre-existing conditions, mostly asthma, and it was just they just wanted to be observed just in case they didn't want anything to get out of control, though they had no real intent or symptoms believing that they were in danger. So 5 potentially, even at worst case scenario, 5 hospitalizations out of 35,000 college students. It's a pretty good ratio. So I think that also might have been an incentive in trying to get people to, decide to go back and play sports now in the fall. Now, with the unanimous approval of the conference's Council of Presidents and Chancellors, the Big Ten plans to begin its football season, the weekend of October 24th, with each team playing an 8-game schedule. So, hey, if you're a Big Ten fan, then you can rejoice. I like the Big Ten. Actually, I'm kind of an oddball. When I was hitting my stride in my younger days, like in high school or junior high or whatever it was, and Barnett was a coach at Northwestern, and he took the Wildcats, to levels that they had never been to and probably never deserved to be at, like the Rose Bowl and things like that. I got very excited for them, and I became a big fan of Northwestern at the time. Of course, I like Illinois because I'm from Illinois. I used to like Michigan. I still kind of do because I like Jim Harbaugh because he used to be a Bears player. Wish he was the Bears coach. Actually, probably not, because he was in San Francisco and he got the team to a Super Bowl, but then everything kind of fell apart rather quickly. But that being said, there you go. Without a doubt, now the Big Ten is scheduled to be back in just over a month. So because now they have to go to doing the regular practicing and getting all amped up to play a season. So hopefully everything goes well. Hopefully no one gets sick, and hopefully everyone can be happy indeed in Big Ten football. So moving on. This is not Big Ten football. What this is apparently is that the Trump peace deals that he made over the last month or so apparently were a big deal. So a lot of the people in the media, especially on the left, CNN, MSNBC, the normal people, were really downplaying the fact that these 2 peace deals that Trump helped broker between, first one was between Israel and UAE, and then between those 2 and Bahrain, I think I can't remember exactly, but those were apparently the 3 players, and everyone said, well, it's not a big deal. Those people weren't at war. They weren't going to fight. There was no conflict. This is just nonsense. People are taking credit for things that they shouldn't, and people are trying to, pump up Trump and try to get him talk about Nobel Peace Prize, and he doesn't deserve it. There's no way he should have anything to do with it. He shouldn't get any credit for it. It's no big deal. Well, apparently it is, because this guy that we're looking at right here, his name is Hassan Rouhani, and he happens to be the president of Iran. He's not very happy, to be honest with you, that these peace deals were made. In fact, he's pretty ticked off. And here we have a little bit more about it. It says Iran warns the UAE and Bahrain, sorry. See, I know I was saying it wrong, Bahrain. They will bear severe consequences after they signed historic peace deal with arch foe Israel. So for all the people out there who are watching this right now, who maybe get their news from only certain echo chambers, and it could even be the right, but say, for today, we're going to talk about those who get their, news from an echo chamber from the left. They're talking about how this is not a big deal, that this peace deal is really nothing of the sort. It's just for show, and it's just that. But it's obviously not, right? Iran is literally warning countries that there are going to be severe consequences for signing a historic peace deal with Israel, which is just insane, because these countries are not Iran. So I can understand if people of Iran got mad at, say, the president of Iran, if he had done something like this, right? If he had made an agreement of a peace deal. But that's not what happened. These are other countries. These are independent countries. They're sovereign countries who are allowed to do whatever they want, whenever they want, right? So because of this, they should be allowed without threat. But yet here they are publicly being threatened by a president of a very angry president of Iran. Iran has warned the UAE and Bahrain they will be responsible for severe consequences caused by the signing of an historic peace deal with Israel. Again, this is a terrible thing, and no one's talking about this on certain media outlets. In fact, I can't even say like the more right-leaning ones like Fox News is talking about it. I'm sure that they are. Excuse me, my allergies are terrible today. I apologize. But as you may or may not know, I decided last year that I was sick and tired of taking allergy medication. So not to go on a huge tangent here, but we're going to go on a little tangent. So last year, they've been like my second or third year in a row of taking allergy medication, like literally for 7, 8, 9 months, whatever it was. And I was miserable. I was literally walking around feeling like a lost human being, right? I never felt right when I was on medication for allergy medication. It made me feel like a half a person. And I decided at the end of last fall, when, winter started coming, the frost started coming, I could stop taking the medication, that indeed I was going to stop taking the medication this year. I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to do it in spring. I wasn't going to do it in summer, and I wasn't going to do it in fall. Spring came. I kind of wished at first I did, but I got adjusted. It was okay. And then summer came. It wasn't too bad in the summer, but there were some days that were not wonderful. But then now fall's come. I swear to goodness, I just got allergies, just terrible allergies, and I'm almost half tempted to take it. But again, I mean, I don't think I could even do this show or any of my shows if I indeed were back on allergy medication. So because of it, my voice will get scratchy, my voice will crack, and I'll have to stop and drink water every once in a while, but, small price to pay. So back to Iran. Iran has warned the UAE and Bahrain. Man, I can never remember the name. Bahrain. It's simple. Bahrain. Bahrain. But yet I look at it and I'm always like, They will be responsible for severe consequences caused by the signing of an historic peace deal with Israel. Again, this is the president of Iran, the one that was pictured initially, this Hassan Rouhani, the Iranian president, blasted leaders of the two Arab states over the deal that accused them for forgetting their debt to the Palestinian people. So again, I understand partially that the Iranian president and Iran in general is upset that two other Arab states are making a peace deal with the quote unquote evil Jews or evil Israel or whatever. I understand there's a lot of bad blood there. I get it, right? And I'm sure his people aren't happy about it either. But, this is an opportunity for people. And I know this can be an odd thing to say, but, people could start turning the other cheek and trying to see the good in people, maybe that's what the UAE and Bahrain are doing. They're like, you know what? We're tired of fighting. We're tired of wars. We're tired of death. We're tired of terrorist acts happening. We're tired of threats. We're tired of all this nonsense going on. We just want it to end. And if that's the case, good for them, right? And then you got a bully like Iran doing what they're doing. So, and again, I know the other reasons, and I'm sure they're not happy. But hopefully everyone can work it out in the end, right? That's all we can hope for. So going on to our next story. Oh, no, I take it back. I think there's one more. So he's quoted as saying, how could you reach out your hands to Israel and then you want to give them bases in the region? All the severe consequences that would arise from this are on you, he said in a televised remarks. So this is something he spoke about publicly. It's not something that was off the record or someone's claiming he said. He went on television and basically gave a threat. I don't know if it's a real threat. I don't know if it's empty, but it's not a good one. So we wish luck to UAE and Bahrain. Obviously, Israel will then start forming bases in these countries surrounding near Iran. And hopefully everything works out peacefully, right? That's all we can really, truly ever hope for. Now, you'll see pictured here, obviously the man on the left who looks a little, uncomfortable, and for good reason, as President Donald Trump, and the other gentleman next to him is a person at a town hall who is questioning him. So I don't know if I didn't even hear this town hall was coming up, so I missed it. I've only saw the highlights, but apparently there was a town hall meeting. I think it was on ABC, and there was an ambush. It was an absolute ambush. So basically, they had people placed, separated, socially distanced in a small little audience, and they were all prepared. These are all semi-professional type speakers and people ready to go. It wasn't like, regular people. These were people who were trained and focused and given questions, very specific questions, and often many of them giving, rhetorical questions that can't even be answered, those sort of things. Just an unfair conversation. But President Trump, from what I saw, handled himself pretty well considering the situation. But this one in particular I wanted to talk about. So this gentleman here on screen, let's see if we have a name for him. You haven't acknowledged there is a race problem in this country. Black voter confronts Trump over race at Philadelphia town hall and says your MAGA slogan is tone deaf. I believe it might actually hit his name somewhere. Let's see if it shows up. Philadelphia-based black pastor confronted President Donald Trump on Tuesday night's ABC News town hall, telling him that the Make America Great Again slogan is tone deaf. So again, not much there. When has America been great for African Americans? This is a question that he was asked. In the ghetto of America. Are you aware of how tone deaf that comes off to the African American community? Pastor, Carl Day. There we go. So I knew his name here was somewhere. I wasn't lying. So this is Pastor Carl Day. Again, this is someone who speaks publicly for a living, and there was other people as well. Again, I'm not saying these were, people brought in to embarrass the president, but these were people brought in to, quote unquote, embarrass the president. More or less, this is what the situation was all about. So this pastor, Carl Day, in a very, I want to say it wasn't an aggressive tone, but it was definitely in a very assertive tone, right? He had something he wanted to get off his chest, something he wanted to say. And again, that's what these forums are for. It's what these town halls are for. I'm not against people from doing that. In fact, if I was in Donald Trump's shoes, I would hope that if they bring people forward, they had real, honest, even sometimes difficult or painful questions to answer, because you have a chance to speak to an audience of potentially people who are undecided, right? People who might be leaning one way, but kind of on the fence. And then you have an opportunity to be authentic, right? To be honest, to be heard for, who you are, and not just what you're seeing on Twitter or the coverage that they give on the channels. The minute here, the 30 seconds, the minute 25, they cover on you during the day, right? So it's a good opportunity, and I'm glad he did it. And again, I'm not saying I'm voting for the man. I'm just saying at least he had the courage to not get upset, not to blow up, not to walk off stage. He sat there and he answered the questions as best of his abilities. And from the little bit that I was able to see so far, he did a pretty good job. So he also pointed out that Trump hadn't acknowledged Americans' race problem, to which the president replied, well, I hope there's not a race problem. So, of course, there's more to that answer than just what they quoted here in the newspaper. But to an extent, I agree. I fully agree with what the president's saying here. When he says, well, I hope there's not a race problem. Obviously, there is some sort of race problem, because just look outside. Look at your major cities. Look at your small towns now. Look at the news for the last 4 months. There's obviously tension. There's obviously issues, right? And there needs to be, in certain areas, there needs to be something dealt with, right? It's not like it's not like this is just going to go away. You just need to wait it out. That's not what's going to happen here, right? So there has to be some reform. There has to be some, give and take, right? It's not going to be a simple little snap of the fingers, election happens, November 4th, everything's back to good. It's not going to happen that way. This is more of a movement than it is just a minor uprising, right? So I can understand this person, is concerned about race issues. Obviously, he is a Black American. And Trump, again, in this quote here, isn't given much credit to what he actually says. And I have a snippet of video, and I believe that's next. That is next. Okay, so we're going to watch this. And then I think it covers what we just talked about, but we'll see.
We need to see, because you say again, we need to see when was that great, because that pushes us back to a time in which we cannot identify with such greatness. And I mean, you've said everything else about choking and everything else, but you have yet to address and acknowledge that there's been a race problem in America.
So if you go, well, I hope there's not a race problem. I can tell you there's none with me, because I have great respect for all races, for everybody. This country is great because of it. You'll have people choke, make mistakes, and they happen. It happens where they have to make a fast decision and some bad things happen. And you also have bad apples, but you have 99% great people. Somebody can do that. That's a lack of respect. There's no retribution. They feel there's no retribution. This guy walks up to a police car and he starts shooting point blank range at two innocent people. You can't let that happen. You have to be very tough on crime.
All right, so you did see the beginning of it. It kind of jumped on a few different subjects, so I didn't get a chance to cover all those. But you did basically see that when he went to answer the question, it wasn't simply that President Trump, it wasn't simply that President Trump said, "Well, I hope there's not a race problem." He said, "Because there isn't with me," and he had a whole tiny little couple sentences after there explaining his view on it. It wasn't just a simple little soundbite. And that's what we have to be careful with, right? We rely on the news to give us, well, just that, the news. We all can't sit there and follow social media and watch coverage, 10 hours, 12 hours a day. The average person, works. They have a living. They have to leave their house. They have to do things. They have kids they're raising. They have houses to clean or, jobs to do or places to go. It's not like, so people rely on this stuff, but they're not doing a good job of reporting. I understand that there are people in media and have been for a long time who have an agenda, right? But we need to start getting rid of those people. We need to start exposing them on whatever side of the aisle they might be on. We need to start getting rid of them. It's one thing to have an opinion show, right? But when people watch news and read headlines and they see things like, well, I hope there's not a race problem. Obviously, that's not what Donald Trump said. That was just the very beginning of what he had to say. And it's important that we do keep that in mind. Now, going forward, we have another one right here. So this is going to be the last video of the day. Normally, we do what's called the happy ending. Today, not so happy. Today is more sad. But I do feel like I needed to share this with you. The reason being is that there's a gentleman named Kevin Wharton Price. I believe that's his name. It's on here, so you'll see it. He was speaking out on Saturday evening, I guess it was, after those, two LA deputies that we covered last night, or the other day, I should say, were shot, right? He's talking about it. It's about a 2-minute video. He's talking about the things that happened, right? He's talking about the events, the assailant walking up, shooting the police officers, and then fleeing. And then it kind of takes a turn. I don't want to ruin it for you. I want you to see it. I want you to kind of have a natural response to it. I don't want to tell you, well, everything's going to happen, but it is something important that I think you should see. So I'm going to play it for you. And then basically, then basically we're going to be out of here. So hopefully you have a chance to ruminate on it. If you watch the video and you kind of want to watch it again, just go back and rewind it, 2-3 minutes, whatever you need to, and watch it again. But maybe perhaps we'll talk about it tomorrow. Or maybe you can hit me up on Twitter at Kevin Lee Show and we can talk on it there. But yeah, so I'm gonna give that to you guys now and you can watch that and then we'll be done. All righty.